Good evening, everyone, and we are here, Wake Up Call, on site, on location. Your host, Dan Tortora, Dr. Mark Potter, the superintendent here for the Liverpool School District, here with us. He's been with us before, first time here at Avicoli's on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York. This is our Liverpool Leadership Lounge, and it's going to feature 3 guests tonight, exclusively from Avicoli's. Dr. Mark Potter is going to be with us. We're going to have Deputy Superintendent coming up in just a little bit. Dan will be hanging out with us. And of course, my guy, Mr. Ari Lieberman, will be with us, the Director of Athletics. So we'll have a good time here in the Leadership Lounge with these Liverpool representatives. And first and foremost, we have Dr. Potter. Mark, how are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for the invite.
And so you went through 15 months of a pandemic, which is still going on. I can imagine you've been challenged. So where would you like to start of what this last year and a half-ish has kind of taught us and we've gone through in the community?
Well, obviously we've had some ups and downs. Trying to keep kids, trying to keep families engaged in school. Really looking at school to me is a social setting. School was never meant to be an opportunity for...
And a bee on my neck. We're fine.
Okay. That's what's going on over there.
Just threw a bee off my neck. You're good.
I don't think school was necessarily meant to be something where kids are connecting with a teacher or connecting with other students remotely. For some, the small percentage of kids, it may work. But realistically, I think we want school to look normal.
Yeah.
You had mentioned 15 months. March 20th of 2020, we basically sent our kids all home.
Yeah.
And about 800 of our kids have yet to come back. So you're talking closer to 18 months by the time we get them all back. So, we're very optimistic that things are going to be closer to normal, but I'm not really that optimistic that it's going to be totally normal.
Yeah, it's not normal to have a bee inside. So, hopefully I didn't get stung. Felt weird. So, but they have to go through this. Some of the kids decided to come back. Some decided not to come back. You had all virtual, and then you had partial and whatnot. How did you assess that side of things of when you were totally virtual at home, and then when students could decide if they were going to come back or not come back, and then what days are they coming back? I'm sure that scheduling the days in class and the days out, and then on top of that, families making their own decisions probably made for a very unique way of having to deal with not 1, not 2, not 10, but many students in the area.
Yeah, obviously, we school district got about 7,000 kids, and of the 7,000 kids, you identified the families through a survey that really wanted to keep their kids at home full time.
Yeah.
Take those kids out of the mix. We also have kids that struggle with the English language because they're not necessarily American-born students. Some of these, we have about 300 or so kids that are foreign-born students who perhaps struggle with the English language as ENL students. English is not their native language. Yeah. We also have students with potentially an academic disability or a medical disability. So each of those groups played a different part. Then obviously taking these kids and divided them into an A group by alpha, a B group by alpha. We also have mixed families with last names that may not be the same. So how do we discriminate between those kids and make sure that families can ride together to school? So finally, coming up with an A, B, C, D model and bringing kids to school really caused, I think, a little bit of consternation for some of our staff members as well, because I'm asking teachers to teach kids in person on A Day while on perhaps the B group is home, and also those fully remote kids were home.
Yeah.
So back and forth, really a struggle at the beginning, but I give a lot of accolades, a lot of kudos to our staff who really rallied around each other, supported each other, and really tried to make the technology work. And I think by the time we got to April 5th, which is when we turned the corner and said all of our kids are coming back, all of the kids that wanted to come back, we brought all of our kids back 5 days a week. I think, not all the school districts did that. So again, I think it was an awesome opportunity to really kind of learn and understand what did we find that worked really well, and what are we going to keep moving into the future.
Yeah, and what did you see? Never having a plan for a pandemic, now that you had to go through it, what are the plans in place? What are some of the things that you learned that, God forbid, we're in a place like this again? What are some of the pillars that you can go to now?
Well, I think technology played a key in this. You know, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here, so to speak. We want to make sure that if there's an opportunity to keep kids connected electronically, meaning with technology, can we use our cameras, can we use our iPads, can we use our technology equipment to continue to connect with kids who maybe physically aren't in school for a variety of reasons. We also, I think, looking at what worked and what didn't work, we really want to focus on making sure that we give kids authentic opportunities to get to learn with their hands. Because just because we have textbooks, just because we have that technology equipment doesn't necessarily mean that's the best way for all kids to learn based on their own learning styles. But, you know, take those two pieces and really, you know, identify how do we keep kids engaged. And part of this is really trying to empower students to help us with that.
Yeah, you know, and listening to the students, obviously a huge part of this. As the superintendent here in the Liverpool community, and Dr. Mark Potter here with us in the Liverpool Leadership Lounge at Avicoli's, coming to you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, and of course playback on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT and Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT. A lot of areas to get it. Overseeing all of this as the superintendent, people look to you. They look to your leadership. In a leadership role in something like a pandemic, you don't have the answers, or maybe you have the answer on Monday and it changes on Tuesday, or maybe it changes Monday afternoon. How do you go about your job as a leader when you're navigating truly uncharted waters?
Well, I think the first, you know, way to look at this, you know, our first, I guess our litmus test for success is trying to put student safety, staff safety, you know, at the forefront of what we're trying to decide. Obviously, as you just point out, you know, there was a lot of situations where either the governor or the state health department rolled out some sort of a change or some sort of a mandate or some sort of a decision on Friday afternoon. It just seemed like that was the regular occurrence at 4 o'clock with the expectation that we're going to do something different on Monday. That really, I mean, plays poorly for, you know, trying to be the best communicator, be the most transparent, not only for our families and our students, but statewide. So I think if I could offer up a lesson, you know, we need to make sure that the information is shared with our school districts and with their leaders so that we can make sure that our community is fully aware of what's expected. And that's one of the issues we're running into right now is the fact that it's July 28th, and we have no information from the state pertaining to what's expected for riders on our school buses. We left the school year with the rule saying that one kid per seat. We have 66 passenger buses, and we can only put 22 kids on a bus. That's unrealistic. We need at least 2 kids on a seat. What are we doing in cafeterias? We left the school year with barriers. CDC came out and said barriers are unnecessary. As a matter of fact, not only are they unnecessary, we don't want you using barriers. So if we're seated 3 feet apart with no mask, is that going to be acceptable? So my point is this: we really need to know what's the information that's going to be prevalent in making sure we can open our schools.
Yeah, you know, and that's information you can, and I've said this with really anything on a small level or a big level. You can only make decisions on the information that you are given. You know, that's all you can do. And that could be with literally anything. I mean, with me running a business, with you being a superintendent, personal relationships, professional relationships, being an athlete and being in a game, you can only take the information you're given and respond to the information that you're given. You can't respond to information you don't know.
Right.
And the not knowing is really where we struggle. And in this community, I think the hard part for student athletes is that in central and upstate New York, if they went a little bit farther to New Jersey, they could play. They go to Pennsylvania, they could play. Some of the kids were going off to Arizona and playing. So Florida was wide open. And I think that was one of the things that talking to student athletes really got to them was, if I go 2 hours here, I can do it. And I remember there was a business owner in Rochester, they owned a salon. And they said, my salon's closed, but 10 minutes down the road, it's considered a different town, and they're in a different quadrant, and that quadrant doesn't have, it's like in yellow, but it's not in red, so they're open, so all of my clients are going there. You know, those are the things that were really hard for people to deal with, and you know, these 14, 15-year-old kids are telling me, like, I play baseball. If I go to New Jersey, I can play all summer. And they couldn't understand why Central New York couldn't have a similar place in things.
But I think one of the things that becomes clearer when you're involved in a lot of these decisions. Your point about athletics, I think if we know the rules to the game,
Yeah.
you're able to teach, you're able to coach, you're able to understand, you're able to play the game. With this particular situation with the coronavirus, I think we're asking for the exact same thing. Just tell us what we're supposed to be doing, or let us make up the rules, if that's a possibility. I think once we got to the spring and there was some situations in central New York that may have been different than western New York, that may have been different than downstate, I think they had rolled out this idea of red zone, yellow zone, green zone, pertaining to zip codes, and that really played a real, I guess, a bad part in a lot of what we were dealing with. Because you take Liverpool, Liverpool's got 13090 and 13088, two different zip codes.
Yeah.
Syracuse City's got like 5 zip codes. And the way they were rolling out some of the issues was it was by zip code. Now, you can't separate a district with rules by saying this zip code's going to operate this way, this zip code's going to operate that way. So I think there were some things that really came out of that really make sense on how and what we learned would make sense moving forward. I can't say that the county or the state or the governor's office is really going to take those recommendations, but we did write a letter today to our county health department, our county executive, just asking, can you consider these things for us to be able to move forward?
I think everybody in central and upstate New York knows the name Ryan McMahon at this point because he has consistently tried to give out information. My mom's like, he's my new favorite person because she can watch him and get information. So, and he seemed to want to give it. And when we had questions in the community that didn't make sense from the governor's office, he was like, it doesn't make sense. And, so what can you say about, what people like Ryan McMahon and other people in the community have done to try and find some answers and some transparency?
I think Ryan's been a great partner for school districts in Central New York. Obviously, we have 17 school districts in this county. We have 23 school districts in our BOCES. So there is a little bit of, I hate to use the word animosity, but between Cortland County, Madison County, and Onondaga County, because we have a county executive, and those other two towns do not.
Yeah.
So I think he's an advocate for kids. He's an advocate for families. He obviously is really finds economic development something really important in his focus, and really getting parents back to work was vital for him. And part of that was in order for parents to go back to work, schools had to reopen. And I think, as I mentioned, he really was a component in providing, we opened up most of our school districts for vaccines.
Yeah.
He was pushing the health department to partner with districts to provide vaccinations to 16-year-olds and up, and 12-year-olds and up later on. And he's done a great job. We're really trying to be, in lockstep with what schools need to do.
For Liverpool School District, here with Dr. Mark Potter, Superintendent here, and we are in the Liverpool Leadership Lounge with Wake Up College and Satora on-site on location at Avicoli's on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York. We're here every single month with Liverpool, and getting the Leadership Lounge very important to me because there's a lot of questions out there with families vaccination-wise, and I hope you're okay with me asking this, just because there's a lot that goes with it. There's places that are trying to, in a way, force. I mean, you see the NFL is saying, hey, if you don't get vaccinated, we could fine you, we could make your team forfeit, we could take money away from everybody. I mean, dealing with people's money is going to obviously make them react. How do you feel as a superintendent in more or less forcing somebody to get a vaccination? There's Pfizer, there's Moderna, there's Johnson & Johnson. Some people can have it, some people have medical conditions, some people have chosen not to, some people have chosen to, some people did it right away, some people it took a while. How do you tackle such a delicate situation of, somebody wanting to or not wanting to get vaccinated, knowing that in a school you might have a kid that does or doesn't? Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the big piece in this is, we've dealt with vaccinations and immunizations in schools for years and years and years. This is not a new topic for us. We also know that there's medical exemption situations where, parents or students are eligible for exemptions based on various criteria. We have families that have immune issues that preclude them from being able to be vaccinated. So I'm not going to pass judgment on whether somebody needs to or should. However, I do understand that the vaccination plays a significant role in mitigation for the COVID virus. So I think part of what we're dealing with as a school district is the fact that We know some kids are vaccinated. HIPAA precludes us from knowing specifically who they are. It also identifies whether or not we have staff members that are vaccinated or not. We know that there's probably somewhere around 70% of our staff that are vaccinated. And I can't judge why somebody would or wouldn't. That's a personal choice or a personal decision. But it does and will probably play a part in, what the future looks like. I think right now, we're still under emergency authorization for all 3 of the vaccination options. And there's obviously a lot more research because, with the multi-million numbers of people who've been vaccinated globally, I think both, as you mentioned, both Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, I shouldn't say both, but all 3 have additional options now for looking at how successful the vaccination has been. So I think at some point it's probably going to come to a point where maybe it isn't by choice. I'm not sure that'll ever be in schools, but the news today from Upstate Medical, the governor identifying that state employees need to be vaccinated. I think that's a tough pill to swallow in some cases for some people.
Yeah, and I think for me as a broadcaster, I was just waiting for it to come down, to hear from a university like, hey, if you want to cover this team, you have to be. And I didn't want to be forced to, so you make the decision on your own. But it is a question because, do you say to kids that aren't that they have to wear a mask and staff, and then does that ostracize them? And you're going, if you're going down the hallway and these people don't have a mask on, these people do, does it make people treat people different? Does it almost seem like a segregation thing? And that's what I worry about in the hallways.
Well, I think one of the things that we tackled a number of years ago is, we have families who are economically disabled or, struggling financially. We previously, and this was a number of years ago, students would get in line for lunch, and obviously some kids didn't pay, some kids paid only a portion, maybe 25 cents for lunch. And other kids were observing that. One of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to change the system and create some sort of a mechanism where everybody went in and put a PIN number in, and nobody knew who was getting a free lunch. Nobody knew who was getting a reduced price lunch.
Yeah.
And this seems eerily close to I've identified who now hasn't gotten the vaccine because they're wearing a mask. And I think that's really an inappropriate reality, whether it's adults or kids. One of the things that we've been very open with in most situations is the fact that masks will continue to be optional regardless of whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated outdoors. I think the state or the county's got to make some decisions on how we're dealing with unvaccinated individuals and perhaps even the vaccinated ones, whether it's going to be masking or not masking. But I just hope that they take into consideration the fact that we shouldn't be like putting a check mark on somebody's forehead because they're not vaccinated by putting a mask on.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. Dr. Mark Potter here with us, the Liverpool Leadership Lounge at Abacole's Corner, Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York. Open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. And of course, wake up call with Dan Tortora here every single month with Liverpool. Before I let you go, your deputy superintendent is here. What are some words to describe him?
Eager to learn, interested in...
Like I was looking around the corner right now.
Interested in a broader function within the district.
Okay.
I think he's probably going to have a lot to say when he comes over here because he's not short of words.
Okay. What about the director of athletics? And I've gotten to know this man of, I don't know, Ari, what is it, 3 years now? At least 3 years? Somewhere around there? So what can we say about Ari Lieberman?
Ari obviously is very, very closely connected to kids. I think he really is passionate about exploring programs that benefits all of our kids. It isn't just about football. It isn't just about boys basketball. It's about all of our programs. And I think to him, the connection to the kids in the district, and we do a lot of work with branding because there's a lot of pride. The Pool Nation, I think, is alive and well, and I think he takes that as really something that's important to him.
Did he take every part of the old court from Liverpool?
He didn't take all of the court because we made some tables out of some of it.
I was going to say, one of the things that I always wanted, and it's because Dr. Darryl Gross took a lot of the the Syracuse court, the old Syracuse court, is that in my studio or in my office, I wanted to have a piece of a court. And what I'm asking you, And Ari's a couple steps away right now, so I'm asking you this because you're the superintendent. I want to see if you have some pull. Can you get me any piece of the Liverpool Court?
I'm sure that can happen.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And before we hop out of here and go into our next segment, for you, as we step forward, Liverpool at this time, and I talked to Ari about it, and he was gracious enough to have me come in masked up and everything. It was kind of in the heat of the pandemic when we actually were able to come outside and socially distance. And so we scheduled me going over and seeing the grounds and seeing the new offices and the lockers and obviously the exquisite gym. And I think Ari's favorite thing is the volleyball net that comes down and doesn't have to touch the ground or anything, and it's just set up and ready to go. And I saw my guy Ryan Blackwell shooting around in there, and volleyball was able to socially distance, kind of not practice, but to get together and whatnot. And so I got to see some cool things at Liverpool. In the midst of something that was so negative, so scary, so confusing, so debilitating and stressful, here's Liverpool High School giving good news to the community, building amidst a pandemic. And that's what I said to Ari. I was like, what a perfect time to give people good news. So as the superintendent, what can you say about the renovations of Liverpool High School and the timing of those renovations?
Well, I think the points you just made are very valid. Not only the gym, obviously the walking track is a recreational area for kids that are potentially athletes, but it's also addresses some of the phys ed spaces we need. The wellness center, we're talking about how do we now, potentially coming out of this pandemic, open some of this up to a greater community participation. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, the swimming pool. The swimming pool has been completely renovated. It looks like a brand new facility, and really looking at the time and attention really spent on not just boys basketball again or wrestling, but really looking at how are we providing facilities to all of our teams, both indoors and outdoors. Taking one step away from athletics, we're about 90% complete with a brand new auditorium. Our auditorium previously was tired and old. It has a brand new balcony placed on top of it, which seems a little bit strange, but it expands from about 650 seats to almost 1,000 seats. Brand new chorus room, brand new orchestra room, brand new band room, an awesome foyer area similar to what you saw at athletics. An opportunity for us to show off our Hall of Fame there as well. So I think when you look at the gymnasium and the athletic wing, you're going to see something very similar over in the fine arts wing. So we're very proud and very, very excited to offer this to the community.
I think we have to do a wake-up call with Dan Zatora from that new auditorium. Do something fun there.
Absolutely.
So you're gracious in answering a lot of questions. I do have a thing on my show called Rapid Fire, which allows my interviewee to become the interviewer and put me on the hot seat. You're a superintendent. You get asked questions all the time about everything under the sun, and now the pandemic on top of all of that. So I'm going to give you the opportunity, Dr. Mark Potter, to ask me any three questions in the world, sports-related, life-related, pandemic, could be about literally anything. I have to answer them. And so this is my way of giving back to the community since you have to answer so many questions. So what do you got for me?
So let me ask the first question, which may seem very logical. There's a lot of people who, during the pandemic, during the last 18 months or so, jobs shifted, responsibilities shifted. What is it that, and you've got a technology-based work environment here. What is it that came out of the pandemic that benefited you?
Well, people were home. And being home, they wanted something to watch, something to listen to. There was no sports. And people ask me, like, what are you going to talk about with no sports? I said, there's always stories to tell. And so I actually started to book 2 to 3 weeks in advance and became busier during the pandemic. God kind of set me up. Because here I am, I got a home office, I got a home studio. Everybody had to play my game in the media, but I've already been doing it for so many years. So, I always say that God sets me up. So I was ready for it, in as strange as that sounds. The saddest part was that never in a million years did I think I wouldn't be able to sit here at Avicoli's and talk with the kids. I never thought anything in the world would take that away from me. That broke my heart. It killed me to see it. I was an advocate to getting them back in school as soon as possible, safely as possible. And, you know, I think the biggest takeaways are I do a lot more video. I know how to utilize Zoom now. We do a lot of cool things. I worked with a lot of great people, and my show got bigger and better, and I pushed myself, and somehow, and I said, I was like, we're going to come out of this thing better than we went in. My company signed our main title partner in the middle of the pandemic, our studio partner in Cafe Cubal. We added a bunch of businesses coming through the last few months, and my workload has gotten even bigger and better. I've challenged myself, and I do more. So I'm one of those people that if you put me in a tornado, I'm going to find my way to get into the center of it, to the eye, because in the eye it's calm and you can see the chaos. And I found a way to live amidst the chaos, but I stayed calm.
Good for you. Second question. I know you got a tour, of the high school facility,
Yeah.
the athletic wing. Is there an area or something specific there that you look at it and you just say, this is absolutely unbelievable, and I'm glad our kids have the opportunity to utilize it?
Yeah, you know, I think walking into the entrance to the gym and then having the court have the Liverpool Warrior logo on it and just seeing that, I wanted to sit there in the lounge and I picture myself doing shows there with that backdrop. Just such a beautiful, like I don't know how you can walk into the gymnasium now and not look up there at the way that the court was kind of put together and put up on the wall, and to see the Liverpool Warrior logo and not have some type of respect, or maybe just take a deep breath and say, wow, this is pretty exquisite. So I would say that's probably the place that took my breath away, and it's the place where I had already taken a picture.
And I know it looks brand new, but you do realize that's the old floor.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part of it, is somebody buffed that up really nice.
Right.
So,
third question, and this is probably totally unrelated, and I'm not sure people listening will even care about this question, but I'm just wondering what your opinion is about my Las Vegas Raiders and their opportunity for this coming football season.
well, they got a nice spaceship stadium that opened in the wrong year, so
Which I do want to go see.
Yes, and I do too. And I mean, Henry Ruggs, I'll tell you this. So I run fantasy football, and our mock draft 1.0, and we just did mock draft 2.0. Crazy thing about it is Henry Ruggs is the number one receiver, but he's falling all the way to like the 13th or 14th round. Not a lot of people are not seeing the value. Josh Jacobs falling down on the list, and Derek Carr too. So I don't think there's a ton of expectation for the Raiders, but last year they did some good things. I think Denver has a quarterback issue, but if they can figure that out, they do have a lot of talent. They got my guy Javonte Williams from the Carolina Tar Heels, and I think the Chargers are getting better. So I think the Raiders right now are in a danger zone of being fourth out of four in that division in the AFC West. But I would like to hope that getting fans in the stands and getting people out in Vegas hopefully will ignite them a little bit. There's a lot of good young talent. I just am a little bit questioning of if there's a star on the team right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that coming from Dr. Mark Potter, the Liverpool Leadership Lounge here at Avicoli's, corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York. Brought to you exclusively by Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora here every month with Liverpool Athletics. You can literally walk to the high school from Avicoli's, and we'll be back in just a moment with two more guests coming up here. Dr. Potter,
thank you very much.
I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Anytime.